Chapter 1358, Conversation. The Evernight goddess's projection calmly said, "For him or them, we are unable to defeat or stop them. All we can do is resist and suppress them. Perhaps, at certain times, a tiny oversight or relaxing even the slightest will turn us into him. On the path of being a beyonder, danger is always accompanying us. No one knows when one will fall into the abyss." Klein silently added a few words for the Evernight goddess. He thought for a moment and asked, "Did you cause some sort of disturbance when I was born?" Seemingly fused with the surroundings, the Evernight goddess nodded slightly. "I used the uniqueness in Antigonus to indirectly affect Sephra Castle, to tamper the beyonder characteristic that accompanied your birth to the forsaken land of the gods." "Indeed." Klein sighed and frowned. The uniqueness of Antigonus can indirectly influence Sephra Castle. The Evernight goddess's projection replied gently like a lullaby, "He has already lost control. This also means that his self-awareness is no longer able to suppress the Lord of the Mysteries' will in him." The two psyches are stitched together, revealing the most primitive, most instinctual, and also most bloody and crazy side. And the Lord of the Mysteries is the former owner of Sephra Castle. The present Antigonus can indirectly influence Sephra Castle by using this identity very naturally. It's no wonder the Evernight goddess has a greater understanding of the strange door of light than Emperor Roselle. On the one hand, she was born from Sephra Castle, and on the other hand, she had imprisoned the crazy Antigonus. Klein was enlightened as he continued asking, "Why didn't you have any beyonder characteristics accompanying you and Roselle when both of you were born?" In that case, be it the Evernight goddess or Emperor Roselle, they definitely would have chosen one of the seer, apprentice, or marauder pathways. The Evernight goddess's projection said indifferently, "This is also why I said that something unknown had happened to the Lord of the Mysteries, causing many of the prior arrangements to be out of control. After 2 consecutive failures, Sephra Castle experienced a certain change. This is also a good thing for you. As the apocalypse arrives, the remnant will of the Lord of the Mysteries has dissipated. In the end, all that's left is a mental imprint that's attempting to awaken. If you were born in the 4th epoch, you would have become him, the moment you became an attendant of mysteries." This was because Klein had used the curtain left behind by the celestial worthy during his advancement. As for the beyonder characteristics in the bodies of Antigonus and Zeratul, they had undergone generations of beyonders and beyonder creatures, diluting and wearing off the will. Klein had a nagging feeling that the Evernight goddess had some guesses about what had happened to the celestial worthy of heaven and earth for blessings. However, since she deliberately didn't mention it, it wasn't appropriate for him to probe further. All he could do was say, "How did Antigonus manage to accommodate the fool's uniqueness?" The Evernight goddess's dream projection didn't hide anything as she replied gently, "He sought the help of Adam and Ammon. They were supporting Alice de Tudor back then, using the abilities of the Trojan horse of destiny." Klein acutely grasped the core reason based on Will Ossipton's explanation and his inference. The Evernight goddess's projection, that was like the starry sky of the night, quietly comforted her surroundings. They captured a demigod from the Solomon Empire and got Adam to do a deeper-level hypnotism act and a transplant of the corresponding memory, making him believe that he was Antigonus. Then, with Ammon working with Antigonus, he stole Antigonus's identity and fate, while Antigonus used the tampering authority to combine the identity and fate with the experimental subject. That demigod from the Solomon Empire began living in the state of Antigonus, and after some time, he took the initiative to accommodate the fool's uniqueness. He undoubtedly lost control. At this moment, the real Antigonus removed the tampering, allowing his identity and fate to return into Ammon's hands. Ammon ended the theft and returned them to the original owner. Klein listened attentively and added thoughtfully, "If that's the case, it's equivalent to Antigonus failing to accommodate the uniqueness and turning into a monster, and a perfectly well Antigonus with no problems at all. The two completely different fates existed in the real world at the same time. Therefore, fate has been fooled to a certain extent." Before he finished his sentence, Klein sensed some latent problems and hurriedly asked, "Aren't there problems with this?" "It's very risky," the Evernight goddess's dream projection calmly replied. "Fate isn't easy to bear. If one can't retrieve the fate from the target in that short period of time while he's losing control, things will undoubtedly fail. Retrieving it a second earlier will not achieve the effect of the ritual. Retrieving it a second later will lead to Antigonus shouldering the fate of losing control and inevitably end up with the same outcome." "That's right. One has to naturally bear the burden of the troubles brought about by fate. If not for that, Ammon would have long stolen my fate and swaggered into Sephra Castle." Klein mumbled inwardly as he began to think about how he should imitate the ritual of the Antigonus family's ancestor. It was difficult to complete a normal ritual, and with the urgency of the matter, using a simplified ritual to accommodate the fool uniqueness was the best option. "Once I become the half-fool, my control over Sephra Castle will improve. My level and strength will at least reach the level of a true god. This way, even if I face a dual-pathway true god like Ammon, I'll be able to protect myself and wait for reinforcements even if I'm not a match for him." As Klein thought about the strength matchup and development he hoped for, he began coming up with a preliminary ritual plan. He planned on using the Evernight goddess's help to suppress the Antigonus family's ancestor, and use Sephra Castle to steal his identity, fate, and self-awareness. This way, his body would have his own consciousness, the will of the celestial worthy Antigonus ancestors' self-awareness, as well as the anchors from the New City of Silver, New Moon City, and Rorstad Archipelago. He would also become Antigonus to a certain extent and accept his fate of losing control and going mad. The reason why Antigonus went crazy was that his self-awareness could no longer suppress the awakening celestial worthy. The two psyches were stitched together. When his self-awareness reached Klein's body, he would undoubtedly repeat the same process. This was because the celestial worthy's will in Klein's body was no less than the one in his actual body. In other words, the fate of losing control and madness was unavoidable. Klein believed that there wouldn't be any additional burden when bearing it. At the same time, with him having more anchors than Antigonus, his own consciousness could remain center stage and in a harmonious state, maintaining a sliver of rationality. In such a state, he would use the identity of the Antigonus family's ancestor to accommodate the fool's uniqueness. And in the corresponding fate, this was something that he had long accommodated, so it wouldn't bring about any further repercussions. Hence, fate had been fooled. After the ritual ended, Klein would remove his theft and restore his original identity and fate, and no longer be affected by the madness, allowing him to become the half-fool. The main problem of this plan was in two places. First, it was to maintain his own state. Any slight accident could easily cause Klein to go crazy and be powerless to save himself. Second, no one knew for sure how much the celestial worthy's will in the body of the Antigonus family's ancestor would awaken or bring about unsuppressed changes. He could only rely on the Evernight goddess to balance it out. At this moment, the Evernight goddess's projection seemed to have guessed his thoughts. "If you wish to steal the fate of Antigonus, it's best to let him enter a temporary state of eternal slumber. I can try to help you, but I need a medium to have the necessary confidence. This is an angel that had accommodated the fool's uniqueness." "What medium?" Klein asked, seemingly in thought. The Evernight goddess's projection said with a smile, "The water of the river of eternal darkness." As expected. To Klein, this answer wasn't surprising at all. It was even within his expectations. This made him feel rooted to the ground. He deliberated for a moment and said, "Just the river water." The Evernight goddess's projection nodded slightly and said, "You won't be able to take away the entire river of eternal darkness at the moment. You'll understand once you reach the depths of Calderon City. You can ask the questions when you're back." Without waiting for Klein to answer, she added, "For you, there's an unusual danger there. You better wait until your mental state is stable before you go." All right. Although Klein didn't know what he would encounter in the depths of Calderon City, he knew that he wasn't in the right state to take risks, especially when it involved a Sephra. The Evernight goddess's projection continued, When you wake up, hold a bestowment ritual. I will give you an item that can be used to scoop up the river water of the river of eternal darkness. Klein nodded and said without a word, Adam is part of the ancient sun god, one of his identities. The Evernight goddess's projection didn't show any obvious signs of emotion. She gently said, he has already gone to the forsaken land of the gods and met the true creator. That's fast. After feeling a little surprised, Klein felt that it was only right. The reason why Adam allowed the secret to be exposed was that the secret was no longer of value. The Evernight goddess's projection continued. No matter what happens next, it will take a long period of time. You don't have to pay attention to it for now. After Klein nodded, the figure in front of him quickly turned blurry. The night vanilla and slumber flowers under his feet flew up one after another, scattering throughout the darkness. He opened his eyes and saw the dark hall and the pure light shining through the holes in the wall. The latter were like stars embedded into a velvet night sky.